All right, welcome to the Doodles podcast. My guest today is Todd Romano. He is a professional, racer of many things, motorcycles, ATVs, trophy trucks, all that stuff, and also is the owner of Speed UTVs. So thanks for letting me chat with you today.
Appreciate the stop by.
Yeah, thank you. So we met in St. Martin, or we have a friend in common there. Is that you've done more sailing than that though, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in Rhode Island, and I was very fortunate to grow up and sail out of Narragansett Bay.
Yeah.
And back then, my friend had a 42-foot Beneteau that on the Wednesday night regattas and race out to Block Island and did some Cape Cods and back and stuff like that. And but it was fun just growing up. I was a kid. I think I was 14 crewing on my buddy's dad's boat and losing the winch overboard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I got invited back, which is amazing.
That's always good. Well, if you can just sit there and turn the winch, you'll be all right. Arm power. But you, we've been talking over the last couple of days. I mean, you're interested in actually sailing full time eventually or something like that.
Yeah. So growing up in Rhode Island, one of the other things I got to do with a friend, I think they were called F-18s. They were like catamaran race boats back in the day.
Yeah. Let me put that just a little closer there.
Really fun, high speed boats. And my buddy got me excited about, transatlantic or down to Hawaii, Trans-Pacific, and San Diego to Hawaii, all these different things. And luckily Brian invited me out to go to the Heineken Regatta this year, and was happy to do that. And a lot of the racing I race down in Baja, so all this kind of remote racing, you kind of get used to being alone and being remote and not having access to support, and you plan for all that. You have to be ready for all that. And I think sailing is just another version of that. So the idea of going, I don't know how long it takes to get to Hawaii, but does it take a week?
Well, it depends on what kind of boat you're on. I mean, from talking to you, you like the fast boat. So if you're, if you're like in a gunboat or something doing 20 knots the whole way, it'd probably take you, what is it, about 2,000 miles? So, you're doing, 400 miles a day. So not that long,
Yeah, a week tops.
But
and the gunboat we talked last night.
Yeah.
That's, in that 60-foot range is pretty awesome. I was telling you, I had an acquaintance in our industry went all the way up to Alaska in a gunboat, and just those things, the ability to go explore.
Yeah.
Wife's not too excited. She wants to meet me there, so she'll fly to Hawaii, and I'll.
Well, you have friends that are willing to crew with you? Is that the?
I can imagine I could find some.
Okay.
They'll probably.
Hey, call me. I'll go.
Yeah, I have to find the ignorant friends, because the ones who know me might feel like that's a really bad idea.
Yeah. Well, I imagine. I've talked to some gunboat captains, and just saying that the one guy I talked to was on a gunboat 50 or something like that, and he said he was doing like close to 30 knots one night in that thing, and he said it was just terrifying because you're just flying through the water, and I couldn't imagine 30 knots, just flying.
Wow.
So, and that's,
Well, my truck does 140 across the desert. So,
all right. So so you were telling me, so what is kind of your racing career? What have you got? What have you done there?
Yeah. So I would say, a career spent in the dirt. I've raced pavement. I've done a lot of that, but my skill set's always been back to dirt. So I started, and I've been very fortunate in almost all my sports to be part of the sport when it gets the beginning. So in 1988, I started riding and racing mountain bikes, and mountain bikes really started in 1988, which is crazy when you think bicycles have been around forever, but riding them on trails and single track. And I was racing in Arizona and got very fortunate to go race for a specialized team in Arizona, and then get to grow and get to be very competitive, and raced back with some of the greats that are still known today, these iconic guys that I'm not one of them, but I got to race with them and being part of those amazing years. But guys like Johnny Tomac and Ned Overend and Richie Graywall, Tinker Juarez, all these great guys that we all started this industry, and it got to grow. And I still ride today. I ride for Santa Cruz today, and actually just got a new bike.
Yeah, I saw that
in the garage.
In the garage there. Cool.
So biking. What was interesting, I was racing all these crazy downhills, like the Kamikaze downhill at Mammoth. I'm on a hardtail mountain bike with the worst front fork you could ever have, and we're doing 60 miles an hour
down the mountain,
and practically in our underwear. Like I wear more gear motorbiking than I ever do mountain biking.
Yeah,
and a gentleman that I was racing against back in the day, a magazine called Mountain Bike Action, they wrote an article about Johnny Tomac, who's a very famous guy, and he said, "How are you going so fast?" He's like, "Well, I ride a dirt bike on the weekends." because with everything, I have this friend who once told me, I asked him, hey, how do I get any faster? And I was at the end of my two-wheel racing career. He's like, Todd, you're never going to get any faster. He's like, you're a great rider, but you're just not going to get any faster, because to be fast, this was his comment to me, which I've remembered this forever now. To be fast, first you have to go fast. You dumbass.
Yeah.
Right. And the theory there is if you don't take risk,
right,
you don't know how to manage that mistake.
Yeah.
So in my racing career, I was kind of done making mistakes, but the dirt bike, mountain bikes, we were doing 10 miles an hour.
Right.
That's your average speed if you're fast. Motorbikes, we were doing 25, 30, right? On similar single track. So as your eyes, your brain, your reflexes all got faster, you became faster on the mountain bike.
Right.
And that transitioned after riding motorbikes, starting to ride motorbikes. Then I started racing motorbikes, and I raced forever down in Baja and in the desert of Arizona and California. I raced for Honda, I raced for Kawasaki. I ended my career racing for Monster Energy Kawasaki. Not physically ended it, but just
what size bikes were these? So
when I raced Honda down in Baja, we had the super bike of all bikes. I raced a XR 650. It was a bike that did great in Baja, just big, heavy, long bike that made tons of power, and you could run it pinned all day. The bike did 105 miles an hour across the lake bed. Didn't turn really good, but there's not a lot of turns in Baja like here in the mountains. It didn't stop really good because it was heavy.
Yeah,
but it never broke. And it today, I think if we were racing to La Paz again, I'd take that bike, even though it's 20 years old. I'd take that bike over a new bike.
Well, I mean, that's part of, I guess we'll kind of get into it some more, whatever, I mean, how many people actually finish like the Baja 1000? We
have about a 60% finishing rate.
Okay.
Of all the classes. So in the higher classes, like I race in the highest class trophy truck, that finishing rate's even lower because the speeds we're going and the mechanics are just failing. We got 1,000 horsepower motors,
right?
Roll on 39-inch tires, and so your transmissions are getting beat up, your brakes are getting beat up, you wreck the car because you're going too fast. Yeah. I've had some horrific wrecks in the truck, but it's just part of.
So, what is your truck? Your sponsor? Are you still sponsored by Tonka and all that?
So yeah, I had a great Tonka. Unfortunately, that was about a 4-year deal. We did a deal. We did this aspirational idea with Tonka. Tonka has always been trucks and dump trucks and mining trucks. And I approached Hasbro and I said, hey, you have maybe inspirational toys, but you don't have aspirational toys.
Right.
And if you're trying to figure out when what's different with Tonka or any kid's toy, usually the kid, especially if it's 7 and under, doesn't know what he wants. And when grandpa or grandma or aunt or mom go to the store, like, I got to get little Billy or Sarah a toy.
Right.
And if the family is seeing this racer like me out there or they're seeing commercials or now they see the car, they're like, oh, I'm going to get him. That's that guy.
Right.
So now we're teaching a kid to aspire. And I never forget, Nike or Gatorade made a commercial with Michael Jordan back in the day. It was I want to be like Mike commercial. Right. It was an aspirational, I want to be like Mike. It was this aspirational commercial. So when I approached them, we did a great deal. We did 4 years or 5 years with Tonka, with Hasbro. And I was the kids meal at Wendy's. We did 5 million kids meals in 1 month. Then I don't know how many millions of toys sold through Walmart, Target, and it was an amazing thing. And
that's great.
The gentleman who put it together is a great friend, and people retire, programs move on, and you got to always be fresh. So I was very fortunate to have them. I've had great sponsors, my tire sponsors, Toyo Tires, and helped develop technology with tire companies and wheel companies like KMC. Shock companies. I'm sponsored by King, and my fuels, VP Fuels. Oil is VP Fuels. Batteries, Odyssey batteries. So like the whole truck, everything you can consume is sponsored. Sure. And then you have your title sponsors to run the program.
I'm sure it's still not. I mean, I guess the goal for something like that or any kind of trophy truck is to have enough sponsors that it pays for itself, so you're not coming out of pocket paying that. Because I'm sure it's got to be really expensive to operate.
I would bet 5 of us make money racing trucks out of the 40 that own them.
Yeah.
It's a bucket list sport.
Right.
It is a sport you can write a check and participate in. There is very little qualification needed because you're at your own risk. You're not really risking anyone else.
Right.
I would tell you there's few of us who make a living. There's a lot of us who spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
I've been one of the fortunate people that have made a career making a living. But one of my biggest angles is we don't just raise money. We find ways to get people that we do business with on the shelf. Like I get more shelf space at Walmart for Tonka. I've got companies in AutoZone because I work with AutoZone. So if they needed, like VP Fuels came out with a lubricant and they wanted an AutoZone. So part of my deal was I got them in. So if you can help your sponsor generate revenue, then they always sponsor you. I've had sponsors for decades, and that's the trick.
So how did you go from motorcycle racing into trophy truck?
They come at you pretty fast when you're on the motorcycle. You know, you're tired. I have Ironman down there. You know, you go Ironman 500 miles and you're just blowing bubbles and your hands are falling off, your skin's falling off your feet because you have so much sweat going in your boots that your feet are so soft. It's like you're in a jacuzzi for 20 hours.
Oh man, yeah.
So they come by, or you broke down early, or someone got hurt, and you start seeing the trucks, and there's a saying, and I hate saying it because my buddy Ricky Johnson always says it: with age, get a cage. I got it because it was cool. I never really have been adverse to the risk. It's I've never been hurt on a bike in Baja, which is phenomenal. Been hurt a lot here in the States, so just loved it, and got very fortunate. Sponsors built my first race car for me. It was an open wheel unlimited buggy. Very, very fast car, faster than the trucks at the time. The difference between a buggy and a truck is truly just fenders.
Okay.
So the aero on a buggy is better than the aero on a truck.
Right.
The trucks now, there's a big difference because a truck has to have what's called a straight axle or a live rear end versus you have a transaxle on a buggy. But my buggy did 155 miles an hour.
Through the desert.
Through the desert. Oh. It accelerated violently. And it was light. So it was just, it was going from a motorcycle to the buggy wasn't that hard because they still have that very twitchy, not settled, very bizarre way of handling, where the trucks, you just kind of sit there and they just pound, they just eat dirt. It doesn't even... The difference in the truck for most people is you don't realize you can go faster. You can take the corners, you can go deeper into the corners, you can drive bigger through the bumps. So if I put you in the truck with me and we were doing 60, you'd be like, wow, this is amazing. And we probably could be doing 90.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing that gets tough to realize.
So when you're driving a truck through the desert of Baja, how do most people break their truck or get injured? How does that, what's the number one, I guess, danger?
My biggest fear is wreck unconscious fire.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Right. So there's no one out there.
Right.
Helicopter.
Do you have a co-driver or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Helicopter can't fly past dark. It has to be grounded at dark because of Mexican laws. We don't run a lap. It's point to point every time. So you're never doing in the States, we'll race Parker or race the Mint 400. Those are 80 to 100 mile loops. You're never more than 20 minutes in the desert because of the way the courses work. So it's very easy access and there's safety everywhere.
Yeah.
Not that I've still wrecked in the States and been very fortunate that there's safety crews there. But in Mexico, you wreck. I've torn both my thumbs off in Mexico, and you just hope that you get out and you got to manage that. And that's, I think, part of the process of Mexico. That's why I think sailing across the open waters has the same thing. You have to manage those risks differently. It's not a sprint down there. Lately it's becoming a sprint because the technology and the budgets are crazy, and so people are pushing it, and the younger teams that are coming up, they have even more, not sponsor money, but family money. Yeah. Where there is no budget. They're just spending millions and millions to go racing, but they're talented. The McMillan family, I've known them, their family's been in our industry for 4 generations. They're called the McMillions because they spend that much money. They have sponsors, but there's no way you can generate endorsement deals what they spend. Right. Same thing with the Menzies. Bryce is talented, probably one of the most talented drivers I've ever seen. But amazing technology. They run their program like an F1 program. Right. So risk down there. For me, I don't have a lot of risk in racing the truck outside of a mechanical failure that makes the truck wreck. So I was going across the lake bed. Luckily, this was in the States. I was going across the lake bed in Jean, there was the Mint 400, and your spindle, that's what steers your wheel left and right that your tie rod attaches to. The tie rod has a heim joint. Heim joint goes into a spindle, and there's a bolt in there. And that when you turn your steering wheel, that rod moves and it moves the spindle. That's going across the lake bed at 140. The tab that held the tie rod to the spindle broke off. Not because I did anything wrong on the lake bed. It was prior, so I hit something or whatever. But when that happened, usually the wheel will go one direction, you flip and roll.
Yeah.
Fortunate enough, I learned something in that situation, that at high speed, the wheels own like rolling mass.
Yeah, because you got
gyroscoped.
Right.
And it went straight.
Gyroscopic precession, so it's not going to,
It didn't go anywhere. So I was able to slow that down. I couldn't turn it. I went straight through into the weeds because I knew not to turn left or right. But you're on a lake bed. There's really nothing that's going to hurt you. In Mexico, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
Because usually we're in huge whoops. Like the chairs we're sitting on are 36 inches tall. The whoops are bigger than that, and they're about 8 feet apart. So 4 feet
tall. So you're just jumping.
Don't even jump. You skim over the top. You usually click off. I bet easily 75 to 95 miles an hour over these chairs that are 8 feet apart. Rocks, boulders in them, and as long as you maintain that 70 or 80, you skim them.
Yeah.
You get too low, and then you just freaking. It's pretty brutal. So if you break a steering arm there, you're done.
Yeah, you're screwed. So how long does it take? I mean, the Baja 1000. What's like the record, or what's a good number?
So unfortunately, the course changes, so you can't really set a record, and the distance changes. But when we had a little bit less technical terrain, whatever reason, whatever they've done these days, they got us like rock crawl in some sections. So I have a 2-wheel drive truck that's pretty damn big, and they get us going through like billy goat trails at like 10 miles an hour.
Okay. And
then we go wide open when I race my bike down there, I average 60 miles an hour on a bike through the night for 22 hours. Right.
22 hours on
22 hours.
Man.
So when you think about that speed, you're doing 90, you're doing 40.
Yeah.
And now we're more in the 52 to 55 range. They've slowed it down. Okay. Even though the vehicles go way faster, they've made the parts of the course way more technical.
Way more technical. Okay. And so is that, being in racing all this time and doing the trophy trucks and all that, is that what kind of inspired you? And I guess maybe you made the connections and all that to start Speed UTV?
Yeah. So interesting enough, as you get sponsors, they ask for ideas. One of the things I look at today is what companies or businesses have brand ambassadors, right? Like I think what you do is actually pretty amazing, that you're a brand ambassador that understands the technology. You probably give advice back to the manufacturer. You help develop, hey, the steering, I didn't have the same visibility. I couldn't see past the can, the jib was always in the wrong position, or hey, the master bedroom, it's too tiny. We need a bigger closet because I live in on this long. Like you can give so much feedback. So myself and my business partner, Robbie Gordon. Robbie's a very famous racer as well. IndyCar, NASCAR, Trans Am, Desert. Rob and I have been racing forever. We've been these guys that the big companies come to us. So we have about 50 patents that over the last 20 years we licensed or developed. So the Polaris 4-seat Razor, Rob developed that one. The Razor S I was part of, the John Deere Gator, Yamaha Rhino. Robbie and I built the Wildcat for Arctic Double X together. And then just in the last 3 years, we said, you know what? Everyone we license our intellectual property to does a good job with it, but they don't finish it the way we would.
Right.
They're licensing our IP, but then they still build the rest of the car, right? So we said, we're going to go build our own. So 3 years ago, we said, forget it. We're just going to, one last hurrah, go take all the years of racing, all the knowledge we have, and we're going to go build what no one else really knows how to build. Not from a lack of education. I think there's some talented people that work in all these companies. But and I think I shared this with you, but if you go to school to be a heart surgeon, right, or an orthopedic surgeon, you come out of college as a medical doctor, and then you do an internship, and then you do a fellowship, and then you probably do something else. You don't go just because you get an A in medical school doesn't mean you can cut someone's heart open.
Right.
And the guy who go to see a medical school still gets to cut a guy's heart open, and he might do better because during fellowship and hands-on, he did better, right?
Well, there's a difference between book smart and practical smart.
Right.
And that could be, maybe the guy that was a solid A in school, he uses handshakes, and the C because rocks.
Or maybe he drinks whiskey in the middle of the day.
Well, speaking of which, a little more, I think.
So what Rob and I have is years of learning of what makes the cars faster. Our company is called Speed because that's all we chase.
Yeah.
Our competitors, and they're great companies. I've raced for most of them: Polaris, Kawasaki, Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki. They're great brands. Amazing. Even out of Canada, you got Can-Am. They don't chase speed. Unfortunately, they're publicly owned. They chase Wall Street. Wall Street chases them, and it's all we can't build a car that costs this much or it has to have this much MS3. They have all these companies that do studies for them on what they should build. And here's the study we found out that in the Northeast, you should build that. And Rob and I just said, we're going to build what we would drive. We're going to share. We're at the end and at the top of our racing career. I just took second in the Baja 1000 last year. I don't know how many more wins I have in me.
You're racing this year, right?
Racing again this year.
All right, I may be down in Baja at the same time. So
I'm going to push in the car with me.
All right, let's do it. That'd be cool. I'd love to see that.
So we finally unleashed all our trade secrets.
Okay.
And it's what we've built. You can go to speedutv.com. And our business, we call it Born in Baja. So all our cars are called El Jefe and the Bandit and the El Diablo.
So what are some of the specs? I mean, I was looking at it was like 300 horsepower for some of these cars. I'm like,
it's
they're not cars. They're off-road machines, I guess.
When I went to college when I was in high school, a Mustang GT had 225 horsepower.
Yeah.
And I never forget how fast that car was.
Yeah.
Car really topped out at about 135 miles an hour because that's all it was geared to do back then.
Right.
But it was scary fast, you know. So we make 300 horsepower. We weigh less than that Mustang.
Yeah.
We do about the same top speed.
Yeah.
And we're four-wheel drive. We roll on 30 up to 35-inch tall tires. So size of bigger than almost every truck. An F-350 comes with 33s.
Yeah.
So bigger than any truck tire you could buy. We come standard with a 35.
What kind of suspension travel do you get on
23 to 24 inches of wheel travel. So if you go on our side, we can jump the thing 120 feet.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It can go across the whoops at that 80 miles an hour, just like our trophy truck. It's an all-wheel drive race car that's a production car for the consumer.
Is there a class like in the Baja that would fit into?
Yeah, so we fit in pro production UTV, just no one wants us there anymore. The car is just in a league of its own.
Okay.
Fortunate enough, you can't change the rule book. They could change the rule book, but we fit every category. We're 1 liter, we're a turbo, we're four-wheel drive.
One liter?
So we set a
300 horsepower and 1 liter?
We set a Guinness Book of World Record. So the only vehicle that makes more horsepower per cylinder, per hole, is a Formula One car.
So you a 4-cylinder?
Two.
2-cylinder.
I make 150 horsepower a hole.
I mean, I don't. Okay, yeah, I need to see this engine. I think. I mean,
so think of all that.
How many we got? Like turbocharger, supercharged,
turbocharged, intercooled, oil cooled. Yeah. So think about this. You got to see my vet last night, right?
Yeah.
That's the new Z06 makes 700 horsepower, right? It's an 8 cylinder.
Yeah.
Probably a 7.6 liter, not a 1 liter, but it's an 8 cylinder.
Yeah.
So it only makes 85 horsepower a hole.
Right.
I make twice the horsepower per hole than the new Z06 vet.
Wow.
Than any Ferrari.
That's impressive.
Any Lamborghini, we make more per hole.
Yeah.
And next year we have a two cylinder, 1 liter. Next year we're mating those together and we'll have a 4-cylinder 2 liter.
Okay.
That will make north of 550.
Wow. Okay. Man, there's some beasts out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like what kind of, what kind of production run are you doing on these?
So we're capable of producing 2,000 a year. 2,000 a month.
2,000 a month, really?
2,000 a month. We'll ship 16,000 cars in the next 13 months.
Wow.
Just to get off back order. We have that many on back order. And then,
so it's, what is the back order? Like about
16,000. We'll probably catch up. It'll take us till the end of, let's say the end of January to get through the first 4,000. And then I have another 12,000. That is about 8 months because we just can't ship that many to dealer that quick.
Yeah.
We can produce it, but I don't think they can sell them.
Right.
They need so many cars a month through their dealerships. So if by next fall, 12 months from now, we ship 16,000 cars, that's right on track.
What kind of price range are we looking on these things?
The base car is right in line with our competition at like 32, 33.
32,000, really? Yeah. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, when you think...
I mean, a Mustang costs more than that.
A Jeep costs more than that.
Absolutely.
And we are the Jeep of power sports from our accessory line and everything we do. But if you think guys go spend $100K on a Jeep...
Yeah.
And it really can't do much besides be a really good grocery getter.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, I was talking to you the other day. Like, we got the little Ural motorcycle I tow behind the RV. I was thinking, man, I need to get one of those and tow that because like the Ural's great. I love it. It's a lot of fun and it looks cool. But like, I mean, you can make these street legal, right?
So depending on the state, California. So here's an interesting thing. And it depends. We talked about getting pulled over, right?
Right.
So the way the laws work, every vehicle made has the right to drive in any other state, regardless of the law, as long as it's registered in another state for 30 days.
Right. Okay.
So me as a Utah resident, I can legally register my car, my UTV, my speed UTV here in Utah, and I can drive it on the streets in California.
Yeah.
I will get pulled over.
Yeah.
And they're going to give me all kinds of grief, and God help you they'll breathalyze you, they'll look for drugs, they'll do everything you can imagine, right? You get their gun with their magazine and not loaded behind the car behind you, whatever their process is, right? Yeah. You got to be careful with that. So my take is, if you register in your state and you know the rules of the other states, that's what you have to.
Well, you know all the stuff there, because like I said, well, I'm here in Salt Lake, or well, we're in Park City, but like I'm buying an RV tomorrow in Salt Lake, and I was like, I'm not going to be back in Texas for 6 months or more. How do I register it? And he's like, register in Montana. Yep. So there you go. So I've got a new LLC in Montana and register in the RV there.
Is it Sailin' Doodles LLC?
No, it's Glamping Doodles.
Glamping Doodles.
Glamping Doodles LLC. So
glamping, that's great.
Yeah. So that's so if you're not watching the Sailing Doodle show, you should be watching Glamping Doodles also. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, that's cool then. I mean, so like, you can get it. Does it come with like heat and air conditioning and all that stuff? So
our current car, it can come with a front windshield. We have heated seats, so you can turn the seat heaters on.
Yeah.
And it has full doors, right? Okay. The doors are at your shoulders or above. So that's, for most people, that's plenty warm.
That's what you want it for, though. Yeah. It's not a daily driver. It's for going through the
just comfort.
Yeah.
Wind's not in your face, seat's warm. If you're up in the mountains and it's 50 degrees out, you're comfortable, right?
Yeah.
The 2023 car, we have a full, took that same car and we put a full cab enclosure on it. So we have full HVAC. Okay. So we'll have air conditioning. We try to have the Range Rover of a off-road toy.
I imagine you add a little weight, you lose a little performance with that, but
you do, but it's crazy. I've been very fortunate in all my racing career. I had a Stewart Raceworks luxury pre-runner. So they're $1 million pre-runners they would cost more than the race trucks.
Yeah.
They are absolutely miserable to work on, because you take my trophy truck and then you skin an F-150 or a Chevy cab to it, and then you use the firewall, and then you bring all the air conditioning, all the heat, you have everything. So it makes it much more difficult to work on. But when you are down there pre-running all those miles, you're running with a headset, shorts, and a t-shirt on. You're blowing 68 degrees on you all day long. You never get fatigued.
Yeah.
So for the guy who is like, I just want to enjoy going up on the mountains with my wife or my girlfriend, or my girlfriend wants to drive the car with her daughter, you're just out of the elements. It's not raining, there's no mud coming in, and you're cool. So
is this so it's not just like a Baja type vehicle, it's rock crawling type stuff?
Well, we'll be racing King of the Hammers, which you need to come to this year.
What is that?
King of the Hammers is Burning Man times 10.
Okay.
It's the biggest off-road festival. It's in Southern California. Look it up, King of the Hammers. It's the end of January. 80,000 people on the lake bed, bands every night.
Okay.
And we race every day.
Oh, that'd be about
it's a rock.
Time we're coming back from Baja, that'd be great.
It's a rock crawling desert race, and we'll be there. So our car rock crawls. It goes fast across the desert. It gets groceries, and it loves the sand dunes. So it's just max everything. I mean, we're not going to win a drag race, because power to weight wins a drag race. So we build a very safe, sturdy, reliable, overbuilt car. So we're making it so the consumer, it's not their last car, but potentially it could be, right? Where most of the competitor cars, you're always buying a new car every 2-3 years.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing one. So I guess are you bringing one to Baja this year?
Oh yeah, we're racing 4 in the 1,000 this year.
Okay. Yeah, so, I'm gonna check those out then.
Yeah, trying to ensure another victory.
Yeah, we'll have to do
I'm putting my name on every registration, so no matter what car wins, I get the credit.
Okay, there you go. We'll do a video on it. That'd be fun. I'm strap some GoPros on it, right?
So
go
good.
Fly the drone with it. I don't know. The drone can't keep up with it, I guess.
So it's crazy. I have that new drone over there. Have you seen this?
I've actually got one. I've never flown it. The Skydio.
Unbelievable.
Is it okay?
Yeah. So I'm blown away. I had it chase my street car, and it chased my street car. Because what's crazy is...
So it's for those about just the Skydio?
Skydio 2.
Skydio 2.
I'm not sponsored by them. That's not a plug. I'm just telling you how cool it is.
Yeah.
It is... the higher you put it away from you, right? It's only doing 30 while you're doing 70, right? Because it's traveling at a different angle.
Okay.
Right. So if you put it up a little bit higher, your land speed can be faster. And as you move and have to do this,
you're doing 70, but you're doing that.
Yeah, and it's just going straight.
Okay.
So yeah, it's spectacular. It's return to, be very careful because you're on the water.
Yeah.
Return to start.
Yeah.
Not return to you.
Well, so the reason I got that is because I just never ended up using it. It's because you're a big kiter too. We'll get into that in a second. Yeah. But like it's got like a little remote that you can wear. Yeah. And so even if it loses you visually, it knows where you are and can come back and find you.
No.
Oh no? It doesn't do that?
So I'll give you some technology.
Okay.
So been very fortunate to understand UHF. So two-way radio, ham radio stuff.
Yeah.
So gonna go old school here. My high school degree, sine, cosine, tangent.
Yeah.
Remember all that stuff?
I kind of remember that.
A sine curve is this. Looks like a heartbeat, like the sinus curve. If your heart is a sinus curve, right?
Right.
Wow, people are going to think I'm really smart, but this is just this stuff. So the more watts your radio transmits, the higher the sinus curve goes up and down. 5 watt does this. 2 watt does this. 50 watt does this.
Okay.
So my race truck radios were 100 watts.
Okay.
Actually, now we use satellite two-way radio.
Oh, really?
I'll talk about that later if we have to. It's phenomenal technology. Carla's here in Park City.
And you can talk to her.
I talked to her in La Paz.
Really?
Push to talk.
Wow, that's cool.
I'm racing mid-race. Hey, honey, almost done with the race. I'm almost to La Paz. Good. Everything good on the truck. Telemetry looks good. She can see everything. Yeah. It's crazy what we can do. So it's maybe you got to be very careful because it's a push, talk, wait.
Yeah.
It's a little different, but it works phenomenal.
Do you have like a system where people can like track you as you're racing?
Yeah, you can watch the whole race, chase the whole car, see my speeds live.
Is that like on the race thing?
Race,
or is that your own
race thing.
Okay, racing. So you can just Google the Baja 1000 and find it.
Racing tracks, Baja. Well, if you just score international and best in the desert, they both will do live tracking.
Okay.
So 100 watt radio in my truck, a 3 watt radio in a Skydio. So it only 3 watts is line of sight.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you launch the Skydio here, put the beacon on you.
Yeah.
And it loses the beacon.
Yeah.
It's going to return here.
Yeah.
It's not going to return to the beacon because once you get out of that UHF frequency, that sine curve, it can't find you.
Yeah. Okay.
So it'd be amazing, but there's all kinds of regulations on how powerful it can be. Because if they gave that 25 watts, it'd be good for 10 miles.
Right. But then it might interfere with some other...
A plane.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I think these are sub 3.
Okay.
So I can fly it from here to where you did the U-turn.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you're kind of out of range.
So do you have a plan on like racing? You're just going to keep going until you just don't want to do it anymore or what?
You brought up kiting.
Yeah.
So I raced for 30 years and I'll do it as long as someone wants me to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate that I get to keep doing it. I love being down there. The work it takes is, for most people, I don't think they would understand how much they look at it like, I got to go do that. But the effort you put in to learn the race course, the work you do. I'll give you an example. So Carla got to do it. My wife and I have been married now 30 years. Carla went to Baja and was in my truck for the first time in the 30 years of marriage and all my years of racing this year.
Yeah.
Raising kids, risk, all this stuff. And I couldn't get over it. I'm like, God, this is going to suck. She's not going to like this. This is brutal. And she rode co-passenger with me every day. And every day we went from Loreto to La Paz in the race truck on the race course. And that was about at race pace because I ran at race pace most days. 4.5 hours, 5 hours, nonstop, pinned. And then put it on the trailer and drove 5 hours home.
Oh, gosh.
Every day.
She was okay with that?
Loved it.
Really?
Well, can't wait to go back. She's like, we going to Baja again this year.
Yeah.
So I was in awe because not too many people get up at 6 a.m. and get back at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And eat dinner at 9, go to bed. And then our mechanics work all night on the truck.
Fixing everything's broken. Whatever.
Just even if it's not broken, making sure it won't break the next day.
Right.
So they're flipping tires, they're changing air filters, they're changing fuel filters, they're changing the oil in the motor and the rear gear. They're doing all this stuff to make sure the truck can do it again tomorrow. But every day you get up, have breakfast, and you get home for dinner at 9. And that's 2 weeks leading up to the race.
And then the race.
Yeah. So I'll do I'll do 7,000 miles of pre-running.
Wow.
And 7,000 miles of pavement.
Yeah.
14,000 miles I'll do in the 2 weeks leading up to the race to go race 4.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people don't think about that. They don't think about, okay, they just think, oh, wow, they're racing 1,000 miles. No, these guys have done this for 2 weeks straight.
2 weeks straight, every day.
Revving.
And then if you, what's wild, so in November when we race, it gets dark at 4:30, right?
Yeah.
So most of it's a night race.
Yeah.
So you think like, I should go pre-run during the day. Yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe once or twice.
But you need to see it at night.
And you need to get used to, if you, like for me, this year I took the truck at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So later in the week, I had to start adjusting to time. So we would go out at midnight.
Yeah.
Do nothing all day, wait for midnight, and then go out.
Yeah. So that you're still tired or whatever? I mean, you get that. I mean,
Well, no, so you start acclimating to be ready for that time.
yeah.
It's pretty wild, all the stuff you really have to do to be successful.
Well, hey, if she
down
can
there.
put up with that, I mean, she can put up with sailing around the world, I think.
I think she would be nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are big open water days. I honestly would love to solo it. I think that would be crazy fun.
It is. I've done a few solo passages, and they are kind of rewarding, but you're exhausted by the end because you're taking little cat naps, right? If you're doing like the longest one I did by myself was like 6 days, and like from the Bahamas to Puerto Rico, and it's because you can't just go down below and sleep. Right? You set the auto.
I thought you just put on autopilot, have something beep, something shows up, picks up, there's a sea container or a cruise ship, whatever.
Well, so people crossing the Pacific Ocean, like I've talked to people that are single-handed crossing the Pacific Ocean, and they do that. But you're also, there's no other boats around when we crossed the Pacific Ocean, we probably saw 2 boats for the entire 17 days.
Not even like the big ocean liners?
Oh, but they were so far away. Oh, no, but you're out of the...
Oh, you said that. You're out of the shipping lanes.
You're out of the shipping lanes. And so the only other boats you're going to see are the random boat going from like Australia to like South America or something, or other sailboats. And I think we saw 2 boats, and none of them were within like 8 or 9 miles. And so, yeah, for 17 days. And so you're just not going to see them. But when you're going from the Bahamas to Puerto Rico, there's a lot of traffic going through there, so you can do that. But so if you're in the South Pacific, I know people that single hand, and they will just set an alarm for like 2 or 3 hours, and then wake up, look around, and then go. Legally, you're not supposed to do that because you're supposed to the rules of the road, of law of the sea, whatever. You are supposed to maintain watch the whole time.
So what are these Volvo ocean racers? What are they doing?
Yeah. they
televise them taking a nap.
Yeah. So it's not really, there's not like an enforceable law. You're in international waters, right?
Oh, right. There's no law.
It's
a recommended rule.
Yeah. So
I just think endurance racing has been an amazing part of my life. And I look at that sailing, and it's endurance racing. There's nothing different.
The Vendée Globe is calling your name, I think.
Oh, I don't know if I got that. I look at that section when they go around South Africa.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's where people die all the time.
Yeah, I'm not. I think San Diego, Hawaii would be really fun. I think what Brian just did, New England to the Caribbean. I don't care if it's the BVI Caribbean, whatever you want to call it. I think that would be really fun. Blown away that he did that on his first pass.
Yeah.
I've known Brian a long time, and when he just said, I'm doing it, I was like, God bless you. I'm not coming with you.
Did he go what? He went New England to Bermuda and then down?
Till the butter melted.
Yeah.
Do you know that storyline?
No, what is that?
So just learn this.
Okay.
So to get so the trick is to go far enough. Would that be considered east?
Yeah.
Yeah, far enough east that you end up, as the islands head south, you make it there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you end up at the BVI, you're screwed. You got to beat into the wind the whole way, right? Yeah. So you put a stick of butter.
Okay.
In your kitchen, or I don't know if it's outside, and when it melts, you've caught the trade winds and the current that will make sure you land down by St. Martin.
Yeah. So see, that is the whole thing with sailing, is that easting sucks. So most people, when they are going like a circumnavigation going around the world, you go west. Because you're doing that at the middle latitudes, because you have the trade winds go east to west, so you just follow the trade winds, and generally the weather is nicer. If you want to go east, you got to go further north to catch those trade winds going east, and then you're in cold weather.
Cold weather. So if you were to buy a boat in Europe right now, I guess they leave in November.
They leave in November
to make it to the islands.
So you wait till hurricane season ends around November 1st, and it's contrary to most people's thoughts. I mean, like during hurricane season, except for the hurricanes, the weather's better than like the rest of the year.
Except for the
hurricanes.
There's been a few that have been pretty damn big lately.
Yeah, that's true. So, and really, I mean, hurricanes is, okay, so don't do an ocean crossing during hurricane season. The rest of the time, you can be down in the Caribbean right now, no problem. You just got to pay attention and look for the weather. And, okay, if there's a hurricane that could possibly be there in 3 or 4 days, you have head the other way. Head 90 degrees away from it.
Yeah. You know? But, I mean, the hurricane season is still predominantly coastal.
Well, I mean, they form off the coast of Africa and then they go across the Atlantic.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's where so the hurricane doesn't form there, but there'll be a tropical depression that starts there and it goes across the Atlantic. And about halfway across the Atlantic, they can form a hurricane. And that's when they come to the islands. I mean, like, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago? Well, it was like 5 or 6 years.
When Puerto Rico, everything got taken out.
Puerto Rico got hit. St. Martin got really bad. That was Hurricane Maria and Irma.
And those come from South Africa, across
just like the middle of Africa,
Morocco or lower,
a little bit lower, like off the coast of like I don't know, Ivory Coast and like Ghana and all that stuff.
And then they move across, hit the land, and head north.
Yeah, they kind of follow the trades up. So they follow the trades across, and they start heading north. Once they get to about the BVI, they start tracking a little bit more north. They go across they generally go north of Puerto Rico through the Bahamas, and then hit. Then they start catching once they get further enough north, you have the Coriolis effect, where the Earth's rotating, right? So as it goes more north, it gets pushed more east. And so they kind of...
So are there no hurricanes like Mediterranean? There's Greece? No. Nothing.
No, but they have their own problems in the Med. So
I hear that's scary water.
They do. They know. So that's the thing is that they have very unpredictable winds. They can be... it's 5-10 knots of winds, you're fine, and then 20 minutes later it's blowing 50 knots and nobody forecast it.
So you talk about kiting. So
yeah.
Pre-COVID, I spent 6 weeks a year in Tarifa across.
Is that the Azores? Or
no, so Tarifa is about an hour west from the Strait of Gibraltar.
Okay.
Right. So, and 14 miles across is Morocco.
Okay.
And there's 2 winds there. There's the winds from the south of the Ventana, and there's one from the north. I forget what it's called. When it comes from the south, you're talking about really understanding wind and water. When it comes from the south, it is this beautiful, warm, Moroccan, 18 to 20. I mean, it's so big winds for a sailboat, but 18 to 25, just shuts off at night, it's on a thermal, however it works. It's just, south. It's a southwesterly, sorry. Just gorgeous, gorgeous freaking wind. And then 2 days later, it's from the north.
Yeah.
And I forget what that one's called. And that never shuts off. It'll blow 45 through your windows at night.
Yeah.
And violent. And the swell is 12, 15 feet.
Really? And can you kite in 12, 15?
Oh, I go kite. I will kite up to 50 knots.
Well, gee, I mean, how fast are you going when you're doing? I mean, you got a tiny ass kite or something? Or
yeah.
What?
So the thing about kiting is the wind dictates your kite size.
Right.
So all you're really managing is the water.
Okay.
So no matter what wind does, I can kite appropriately. Now, there's some risk to big wind, right? But
sure.
It's really that the big wind creates big water.
Right.
It's not that I'm more overpowered. When it's blowing 10 knots, you put up a 15. When it's blowing 20 knots, you put up a 10 when it's blowing
15 square meters.
Square meters, yeah.
Okay.
So you just keep cutting down. I don't really care to kite anything smaller than a 6 meter kite. So I'm good to, I was cutting Oregon coast. It was blowing 40, gusting to 50, and I kited 8 meter.
Yeah.
Because the swell was 25 feet.
So how do you manage the swell when you're kiting? I mean,
you love it.
Yeah, you just launch off of it, or what?
Well, swell is a crumbler,
right?
They don't break like a shore break, right? They just crumble.
Yeah.
So you're out there, and when I cutted the Oregon coast, I cut this place called the Road's End, just north of Newport, and I was blown away. I mean, gray whales are coming by, orcas are coming by, big schools of sea lions, and it's just the most magical thing to be out there with all this massive wildlife in this huge water. But that's when they're traveling.
So, I mean, like, how did you get into kiting to do all that?
So I was racing for one of my sponsors was POC. They're a big POC. They're a big protection company. They're out of Sweden. There was a North American distributor. My buddy Jarkko Duba was the distributor, and I was ski racing and mountain bike racing and more whiskey. That's gonna be a good night.
Yeah, it always helps.
Yeah,
with the conversation.
And I hit up POC. I'm like, hey, I'm racing the South American World Cup on skis, and I got into ski racing like late in my 30s, and me and my wife
like downhill, like snow skiing,
snow ski racing, like the dumbest stuff you could ever do in your 30s.
All right. How's your knees?
Yeah. So me and my wife go to South America. We go to Valley Nevardo to go race the over 35 World Cup, where like ex-Canadian Olympians and Austrian Olympians are there, and my wife actually wins it.
Really?
Yeah, Carla won the South American World Cup at like 38 years old, and had never raced in her life. Just we had been practicing, and she got lucky because to win the overall, you have to score points in all the disciplines.
Yeah.
So she never did much better than a fourth or a third in every discipline. But if you ski out, you lose points. So she skied every discipline.
Yeah.
And made points in everyone and won the World Cup.
Overall.
Won the overall World Cup.
That's cool.
Yeah. She's
I did not
amazing.
know that. I'll have to congratulate her later.
Yeah, Snow Ski Mama.
Okay, Snow Ski Mama. There you go.
She's a spectacular. And so I went down there and I needed gear, and they hooked me up. And after that, I got invited to their sponsor thing in Hatteras, North Carolina.
Yeah.
A company by the name of Reel does this 0 to Hero camp.
Okay.
So 5 days, learn to kite.
So that was gonna be my next question. It's like, how long does it how long does it take to learn it?
So
pretty big learning curve.
You sail, so you understand wind. That's one huge advantage.
Yeah.
If you do not know how to ride a twin tip, like if you can't wakeboard, you need to go learn to wakeboard.
Okay.
Because if you can't wakeboard, then there's nothing you can do.
See, I can wakeboard, and I can go across. I can do little.
Then you're fine. That's it. So as long as you can ride one.
Okay.
As long as the boat pulls you can get up.
Yeah.
And if you can ride switch,
right,
that really helps, because when you kite, you ride left foot forward, and then when you go the other way, you go right foot forward. Yeah. So most people can go both ways, but they can't stay upwind.
Right. Yeah.
Because they don't know how to edge and rotate their shoulders and everything. So yeah, I went there and I was that guy on 0 to Hero camp that on the third day, I'm like, I don't need any more help. I have this. And it was like sunset. And I'm there with like all these Olympian athletes that ski race and do all this mountain bike and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm good. Let's go for a kite. And I ended up in Buxton. Yeah, like 14 miles away. 14 miles from where I started.
Somebody chasing you in a little.
No. Everybody went out to save Todd. It was this night of like, Todd's not coming back.
Yeah, right.
And I ended up in the weeds with snakes and like kite mares and all this stuff. But ever since then, I travel world kiting, and I think it's probably the most amazing sport as far as wind sports go, and the progression. I foil kite now. So,
I've seen some of those guys foil kite before down in Antigua, and they're just flying.
Yeah, I'll click 35 mile an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it was only when we were there. I mean, it was blowing 20, 25. Those guys probably were doing much faster.
Probably 40 plus knots.
Really,
across the water.
Yeah,
especially if they're on a race wings and race boards, and if they use ram air versus inflatables. Like an LEI is an inflatable leading edge, and I ride mostly inflatables because I do more tricks where those race wings are just made to go fast.
Okay, so like so is it kind of like I'm a little familiar with like wing boarding, so it's an inflatable wing.
Yeah, so you're running a leading edge that's inflatable.
Okay.
The guys that race, they run what's called a ram air. So as air comes through the kite, it inflates the kite.
Is it a lot harder? I mean, if you go down in the water, how do you relaunch that?
Yeah, so I'm afraid of that.
Yeah.
And I ride in waves, so those guys don't really ride massive waves, but they relaunch.
Yeah.
They're one-way valves in them.
Okay.
So when the water comes in, or if they hit the water, as soon as you get any air back in the leading edge, in the ram air, it just pushes the valve open and it opens the water drains out. Okay. I've seen the whole kite submerged.
Yeah.
The guy gets a little bit of air, and they're riding again.
I mean, is there any inflation at all in it? No, really? Wow. That's got to be hard.
They're so stable and they're so slow. Like my kites are like rocket ship fast. They move so quick left to right. Those kind of like they're just these big. So for racing, they don't move fast. So as your body's moving and that input's moving into the kite, none of that's affecting the bar and where the kite goes. We steer with 2 fingers. Get all that power, all that energy, and you ride with just 2 fingers on either side of the lines, and that's all it takes to move that kite. On my kite, those guys, they're like ripping with one hand, ripping the other, because the kite just is so slow.
Yeah.
But that's why they can go so fast with them.
Well, so does Carla?
Carla kites. She's been to Zero to Hero Camp twice.
Okay.
My daughter Cicely met the other night. She kites. She's a great little kiter. I taught her when she was 16.
Well, I know lots of people that cruise around that do kite, and going across the South Pacific, some of those places. I mean, like you're in, like you get to French Polynesia and you want to go kite in the Tuamotus. So the Tuamotus are these ring island atolls, and so like inside, I mean, it might be blowing 30 knots out there, but like it's flat. And so you're just flying or whatever.
Well, when I was in St. Martin with you guys, I was on the north.
On the French side. Yeah. And
that was the same thing, that bay.
Oh, you're like Amerigo Bay or probably Nor up there. Oh, it was, what's that other bay up there? It's, oh gosh, I forget the name.
It's kind of the tourist trap up there.
Yeah.
But the way the island worked up there, if you went outside the cove, it was...
Grand Cos. Yeah.
Went outside the cove. It was pretty windy and fun. I went outside the cove, but inside where a lot of guys were learning and having fun, this is pretty much flat water and pretty stable and really fun place to kite.
So if you're wanting to go sailing, and we were talked about it a little, you want more of a performance boat. Have you actually sailed on like an HH or a gunboat or anything?
Just my F-18.
Yeah. I'd recommend sailing on one of those and then sailing on like a semi-performance cat. I mean, you get you can get a lagoon or a Fountaine Peugeot's a little bit more performance than a lagoon, but I mean, they're still basically mostly built for comfort and all that. Yeah. But I'd suggest sailing on one of those HHs or the whatever, and just, you are a lot faster, but it's louder. Like you were saying,
this carbon hull is going to be brutal.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I've said that Fountain Pagano is kind of like, don't buy a gunboat, get the Pagano. And at the end of the day, is it going to be, hey, we're going to take 6 months and cruise? And if we're going to, how much comfort? Because if you're living on a boat, I honestly think comfort's, you see, you've been sitting on the porch, right? We kind of enjoy some comfort.
Well, I mean, if you get a big enough, if you get like a 60-foot, cat, something like that, I mean, you have enough water line that you're still going to be doing, 12, 13 knots, something like that. I mean, whereas the 45-footers are 10, 9 knots, top end. So it's all about water line and weight, really. And that's why the carbon boats are so much faster.
So is it because the weight puts the hull more in the water?
Well, I mean, there might be some of that. It might be some of drag because you have more hull in the water, but I think it's mostly just, you got to accelerate a heavier mass, right? I mean, you got, if the boat weighs 10,000 pounds more, then you mean that much more pressure to push it through the water. And
you can't just keep going up and sail.
Right. Yeah. I mean, eventually, you reach a stress limit on the sails and all that. And that's really important on a cat. I mean, on a monohull, if you go overpowered, ideally, the boat just lays over and it'll come back.
Cat don't.
Yeah, cat doesn't do that. Yeah. Although, from what I've learned over the years is like, so if you get in too strong of winds in a catamaran, the wind is not going to push you over. If you get too strong winds in a catamaran, it might break your rig first. So
like the dual sponson?
Well, so like, your mast might break.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because it can't handle the load.
It can't handle the load. Yeah. So like the wind is not going to push your boat over and flip it over. That's not to say the waves can't.
Right. I hear that's the hardest part on the cat.
Yeah.
But you get a big enough cat, you're kind of safe on that. I mean, unless you're out in 40-foot waves. Well,
I mean, but that's the thing. And with the race experience and all that, it's all about planning ahead. Yeah. And I mean, just don't put yourself in that position. Yeah. I mean, okay, don't sail across the Pacific during hurricane season and you'll be fine, because like you might have an isolated storm come through where it sucks for like 6 or 7 hours, but you're not going to get 40-foot waves in that. You're going to get 10, 15.
Every time I talk to Brian's in 20-foot freaking waves. I'm like, what is he doing? Is he like, I see video. I'm like, I've done some crazy stuff. I jumped a 175-foot canyon.
On what?
In my buggy. for Nitro Circus one time. 42 feet in the air, 175 feet across.
Jesus.
Failure was not an option. And I'm like, I look at Brian, he's got videos and the waves look like skyscrapers. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
okay. I mean, I've only been in like 20-foot seas once, and I mean, we knew it was going to happen, but we knew it was pretty. And honestly, if the waves
have the distance,
that's the thing, is if they're far enough apart, it's actually nice because you're surfing down that wave and you're speeding up to 10, 11 knots. Then you're going up the wave, you kind of slow down a little. But
they just never break. You just you just can't get those head walls.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if it's confused sea. I mean, that's the problem, is if it's not just like a solid, swell that's really uniform. If you got two swells meeting and all that, that's when you get the washing machine. And catamarans are generally pretty good in most sailing conditions. I'd say the sailing condition that they do suck in is when the waves are exactly beam on, because then you kind of get the flip flop. Whereas a monohull, don't get me wrong, it's not great, but a monohull kind of rides up and down.
Right.
So I don't know.
Just don't put yourself in those seas.
Yeah.
If you're kiting, they're good.
Yeah. See, but
Well, you talked about seas, so let me tell you, south of La Paz.
Yeah.
I've been in that stuff.
Yeah.
I do a ton of kiting out there. I mean, 8 foot all day, crazy 30 to 40 knot winds.
So are there people that go missing every year kiting and stuff like that? I mean, is it pretty often people like either disappear or die?
I don't know, because you're taught to kite never offshore.
Right.
That's part of what we learn.
So you want the wind blowing onshore.
It has to have some version of it. Full side is okay.
Okay.
Because even full side, you can body drag in if
Okay.
you have an issue. Because side is still side, so you can go left or right.
Right.
But never side off.
Right.
And never off.
Right.
So I don't think people go missing, but people get hurt.
Yeah.
The technology, when I started kiting, I think was just at the inception of D-Power. So
D-Power?
Yeah. So back in the day, imagine a kite was no different than a ski boat, you being attached to a ski boat.
Right.
If you held on to the bar, you're still being pulled by the boat.
Right.
So the only way to get the kite not to make power is to have it at 12 o'clock or at the ground,
right,
at a full opposing the wind, right, or whatever that would be. Those are the only two ways the kite never made power. Today, that's still the case. But you have this bar that's like a gas pedal, and if depending on what you have, let's say it moves 18 inches. So the more you pull in, the more power it makes. It trims the kite. Okay. Before, you could never trim the kite. It was trimmed and it was lit.
Yeah.
I started kiting right when you could have D-Power. I have friends who started kiting before that, and those guys, all the videos you see, the guy like going up and never coming down and blowing to the cliffs. That's because he had no D-Power.
Right.
And I've jumped 70 feet on my kite.
Yeah.
But I control it the whole time. I can fly it.
So you're flying it down like a parachute?
Yeah, just parachuting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can pick how slow you want to come down. Like you go fly 2 football fields.
Yeah.
It's actually safer to be higher.
Yeah.
And glide, because you get this kind of that versus this is bad.
Yeah.
Right? Just that straight up pop and straight down, because you gotta have, just like anything, you have to have that forward momentum when you land. You don't just want to fall out of the sky.
Straight down.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate, but I had a huge wreck. I was teaching my daughter to kite, and I was on grass, and she walked across downwind, directly downwind, which is the scariest thing you could ever have. It's called hot launching a kite, right? She tripped, and the kite went straight up in the air, and she was standing at a dock. So my only option, I know I'm coming at the dock. I'm only 66 feet away because of the lines.
Yeah.
And I'm in 30 knot wind. Uh-huh. So the kite goes up, I'm coming down, my legs and me are going to go straight onto the dock because the dock's elevated. So I sheeted in. I'm like, I'm either going to die hitting the dock or I'm going to clear it.
Yeah.
So I pulled in, cleared the dock. I'm like, oh my God. And then I hit, when you tie your boat to
pylon?
those pylons. Yeah. Yeah. I hit the boat with the pylon with the whole left side of my,
jeez.
I broke every rib and every cartilage off. Oh. And then your lungs are held in a bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ripped that bag off my inner body cavity, and then I collapsed my left lung. And then it spun me, and in the water is like a snowboard ramp, like for guys to do tricks on.
Yeah.
I hit that. I broke 2 vertebrae in my back.
It's just dragging you through there.
Oh, it's instant. It was like a car wreck. You hit it so damn hard. And then I broke my back on that, and then it put me in the water and dragged me through the jet skis. And I finally stopped, and like I should have been, like everyone thought I was fucking dead. Sorry. And I was like, I'm good. And
You're not good.
Because I didn't want my 14-year-old daughter to think she'd kill her dad. And I kited the next day.
Really?
I called Carla. I'm like, hey, get here. She wasn't even there. I go, I'm not going to move in a day. I'm going to the ER. Yeah. I go, but I'm not going to let Cicely know I'm hurt.
Yeah.
So I went and kited with her the next day. I knew Carla. She flew from Park City to Norfolk, West Virginia, rented a car, drove down, and I went to the ER, and they're like, you're a disaster.
Oh, man.
So you can get hurt.
Yeah.
And
is that the worst? I mean, like, what's the worst? I mean, you said you broke your thumbs. What, racing was...
But that injury, they couldn't do anything for me. That was all weight. That was pretty rare. I've had some pretty bad, like
broken ribs. Yeah, unless it's like a compound fracture,
there's nothing they can do.
Yeah,
that was just a long wait, and the collapsed lungs tough. But I got in a head on my dirt bike once in the air, so 50 double 50, so 100-mile-an-hour impact, and I ripped this air off, blew out this air drum, broke the femur. Full SI fracture of the pelvis, broke the wrist, broke the thumb. That was 2 weeks in ICU. That one was rough.
See, I mean, I guess that's the difference between people that do the extreme sports stuff is that, like, I'm riding my bike down the hill at 30 miles an hour and I'm like, whoa, man, I mean, if I crash, I'm dying or whatever. Whereas like the extreme sports people are just like, fuck it, let's go, I mean,
yeah, I looked today. What do you think? How fast do you think I went today?
Man, you said you were pretty pumped. I don't know. I mean, you said 36 the other day, downhill single track. I'm gonna say 39.
I don't know. Today was fast, but I don't know if we hit those speeds. But so today's top speed, 42.
42 miles an hour.
I didn't know we went that fast.
On a mountain bike.
On a mountain bike descending 42.
Not on a road, right?
No, it was 18 inches wide.
Yeah. So, like I rode my road bike the other day and I'm doing downhill and I'm hitting 37 on my road bike on nice pavement. And I'm like, okay, I need to slow down a little.
We hammered today.
Yeah. Oh shit, man. All right. Well, we got a concert to go to tonight.
Cheers,
so
man. Great time. That was a fun conversation.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Click that like and subscribe button and visit speedutv.com.
Yeah.
Speedutv.com and
the Romaniac.
And the Romaniac on Instagram. We'll put his stuff up there. So all right, guys, y'all have a good one.